even goes on your podcast. I don't know why she supports anything you do. You've been a snake in the grass the whole time, and you've been out the grass.
For flagrant 2 on Sophie Cunningham. Now, after the game, the 30th season of the WNBA.
You know, I want to see all those things, but I also, more importantly, want to see that same.
When an Indiana Fever fan was spit on and assaulted by a Seattle Storm fan, they was real quiet and silent.
The host opens genuinely frustrated with Cheryl Miller and Sue Bird's halftime comments, calling them out hard for what he sees as picking sides in the ongoing Fever controversy. Strong reaction, and worth saying up front, a lot of this frustration is real and shared by plenty of fans, even if some of the specific accusations here run ahead of what Bird and Miller actually said. The setup is accurate. This really did happen during the Minnesota Lynx-Dallas Wings halftime broadcast on NBC, and it really did generate a big reaction across sports media, including from Skip Bayless. That part of the story checks out completely.
Show here on national TV, the Minnesota Lynx versus the Dallas Wings game, and at halftime, they are talking about how Caitlin Clark fans have hijacked the league and they basically don't want anything to do with her or her fans. Skip Bayless absolutely flamed them, and everybody else that's thinking and acting like them as he should. Welcome to Keep the Vision. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share the channel, hit the bell notification, hype the video. We got to get into it, man.
The host's specific complaint that Bird and Miller haven't commented on the Seattle Storm co-owner incident is worth noting as a real critique of selective commentary, though it's also fair to point out that analysts aren't obligated to address every single controversy in a brief halftime segment.
Storm fan. Cheryl Miller, I'm disgusted. Disgusted. Another snake.
And our narrative.
Yeah, I mean, this is such a nuanced conversation, probably difficult to have in a halftime segment. But I do think that there are people trying to leverage our league for their own personal gain. And in my experience as a player, particularly in 2020, what I learned is you have tough conversations behind closed doors, you strategize, and that's how you figure out how to, for lack of a better, defend yourself and defend what this league has built.
The reference to a Fever fan being spit on in Seattle is completely real. It happened after Indiana's July 28th win, was caught on video, went viral, and drew widespread condemnation across social media, independent of anyone's opinions about Bird or Miller.
Disgusted. They was real quiet and silent with everything that took place in Seattle. It's crazy. All of a sudden, that snake Sue Bird got something to say. Straight clown. Straight clown. I just got to call it what it is, man. This is the lettered mafia. And that's cool, sticking together. You already know what it is. You already know what it is. They want to try to make it seem like, oh, Caitlin Clark and her fans are the issue. Crazy works.
The actual broadcast context being referenced here is accurate. DIDN Carrington was ejected for a flagrant 2 on Sophie Cunningham. Stephanie White's post-game comments acknowledged the call was correct while not characterizing the contact as intentional. And yes, race did become part of the surrounding conversation once Carrington posted afterward. Here's Cheryl Miller's actual quote, word for word. "I want to see that same leadership during the collective bargaining agreement. Stand up for your brand. This is our brand, and not watch a bunch of outsiders hijack the league and our narrative. That's real and accurately quoted here." But here's where I want to slow down. Nowhere in that actual quote does Miller name Caitlin Clark or her fans specifically. The host's interpretation that this is clearly a shot at Caitlin Clark fans is his own reading of the comment, not something Miller or Bird explicitly said. It's a plausible interpretation given the context, but it's an inference, not a direct quote. The financial argument here is worth engaging with on its own separate merits, pointing out the league's dramatically increased salary cap and endorsement opportunities this season is accurate context, even if crediting all of that growth to any single fan base oversimplifies a genuinely multi-factor business story. And circling back to the Seattle incident is a fair point about consistency. If the broader argument is that outside actors shouldn't be allowed to hijack the league's narrative, then real incidents like the spitting attack and the co-owners' confrontation with teenage fans arguably deserve just as much acknowledgement from league commentators as any other storyline.
Share the channel, hit the bell notification, hype the video. We got to get into it, man. Sue Bird is a snake. Can we just call it? Can we just? What would Ben Daniels say? A spade's a spade. She's a snake, bruh. She's a snake in the grass. She has been hating for so long, and now she's finally coming out. I think it's really interesting, by the way, Cheryl Miller, Sue Bird, y'all still have not.
The frustration about perceived silence on real, ugly incidents happening at actual games is understandable and shared by a lot of fans across the spectrum. Nobody should have to defend not condemning fan violence loudly enough, and it's fair to want consistency from anyone commenting on league narratives.
Was intentional, and obviously this coming after Cunningham recently voiced support for limiting the eligibility of transgender women in female sports, and race continues to be a part.
What does that have to do? Her talking about that shouldn't have nothing to do. That was a dirty foul, and that's all y'all should be saying. Point blank, period. Y'all didn't talk about nothing that happened in Seattle, but y'all want to try to, man, y'all sick.
The context of conversation all around the league. We talk a lot this season about the growth of the WNBA. I'm curious, Cheryl, how you expect players to continue to galvanize around the league, push it forward, stand in their...
Here's Sue Bird's actual quote, also accurately represented. "This is such a nuanced conversation. I do think there are people trying to leverage our league for their own personal gain. You have tough conversations behind closed doors. You strategize. That's a real, measured statement about wanting internal unity, not an attack on any specific fan base."
And so what was it being hijacked in Seattle when an Indiana Fever fan was spit on and assaulted by a Seattle Storm fan? Cheryl Miller, I'm disgusted. Disgusted. Another snake.
And our narrative.
Yeah, I mean, this is such a nuanced conversation, probably difficult to have in a halftime segment, but
The bottom line worth taking from all of this, there's a real, fair conversation to be had about consistency in sports commentary and real, documented incidents on multiple sides of this story that deserve equal scrutiny. But it's worth being precise about what Bird and Miller actually said versus what's being read into it, since the gap between the two is exactly where a lot of this controversy is being generated.
The eligibility of transgender women in female sports, and race continues to be a part.
What does that have to do? Her talking about that shouldn't have nothing to do. That was a dirty foul, and that's all y'all should be saying. Point blank, period. Y'all didn't talk about nothing that happened in Seattle, but y'all want to try to, man, y'all sick.
The context of conversation all around the league. We talk a lot this season about the growth of the WNBA. I'm curious, Cheryl, how you expect players to continue to galvanize around the league, push it forward, stand in their conviction when they need to, and do both of those things in the 30th season of the WNBA.
I want to see all those things, but I also, more importantly, want to see that same